Hello and welcome to the Empowered Learning Podcast. This is your host, Andy Bennett. On today's episode, we welcome Shayne Mims. Shayne has worn many hats through the years as a professional actor on screen and stage, a pastor, and currently professor at Drake University. Shayne holds a BFA in music from my alma mater, Adams State University, and an MFA in musical theater from San Diego State. Shayne is an amazing husband, father, and passionate coach and mentor. Welcome, Shayne.
Hello, Shayne.
Hey, buddy, how you doing? It's good to see your face, man.
It's good to see you too, man. It has been a long time. We got a few wrinkles right here since last time,
huh? Oh, yeah, it is. I mean, we've talked a few times, but it's been a while since we've seen each other's faces, and it just makes me so happy to see you.
For sure, buddy. You too. Yeah, I've been looking forward to this. I kind of, the podcast is a month old yesterday, I guess, and in that, kind of month building it, and then the month of it premiering up to this point, I've reconnected with so many awesome friends, and it's like, well, that's a silly reason to, it's a great reason, but why did it take this long for us to reconnect here? So regardless of why we are here, and super excited to chat with you. You and I have been going back and forth for weeks now about, hey, should we talk about this and that? So y'all are in for a treat because Shayne is uber prepared, and maybe it's the actor in him. I think he's ready to rock the house. So
let me say this first before we dive in, Andy. I just want to say I'm really proud of you for doing this. First of all, you're going on a limb, starting a podcast and trying to put information out into the world. And I'm really proud that you're doing that you're willing to do that, but also you're doing a great job at this. I've been listening to the other episodes, and you're a great conversationalist. You're guiding these conversations well. You're doing some stuff. I had a mentor one time say that our jobs as mentors is not to fill up other people's cups, but to empty our own cups. And then whoever needs what from that can benefit. So what you have shown is that you're willing to just empty your cup and what you've experienced, and we're all growing from it and filling up our own cups. So thanks for doing this, man.
Thank you very much. That means a lot. That means a lot for me, buddy. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's kind of a weird thing. Probably for 6 months leading up to, so about halfway through 23, I had gone through a course, and I'm like, okay, there's a business angle in this. And I think that there would be a business sense of doing this, and, all of the business angles. And for whatever reason, it just took a little bit of time to dive in. It's hilarious. I just finished recording an episode with Kelsey Elizabeth Matthews. So for those that, if you haven't watched that one yet, make sure that you check it out. But this term came up, and it's kind of the idea of what Shayne's talking about there, this idea of taking massive imperfect action. As a perfectionist, that's a really, really difficult thing for me to do. And I'm not just saying this to toot my own horn or whatever, but I guess just as an encouragement to anybody else out there. I've got another one, which I won't spend time finding, but it's like, understand that your first workout is going to suck. Your first podcast is going to suck. Your first whatever, it's going to suck, but you have to get through the suck to get to the point where it's natural and it's fun and you're doing a good job. And I've got a long ways to go, but I appreciate the attaboys at this point. It does help to kind of get through those moments where like, man, is this really worth doing this time? And anyways, so thank you for that.
Well, it is. It's before you can be good at something, you have to be bad at it. And before you can be bad at it, you have to do it. And you've already done that, although you skipped kind of right over the bad stuff, and you're doing. So, I'll say that all day long, but I'll stop.
All right. Very good. So we dive into the deep end here with, old ASC. I guess if I say ASU, people are like, we went to Arizona State. We went to ASC. It was a college back then, but good old times, man. So much fun. 68 West. We're going to go into lots of weird places, but it'll be a fun conversation. So before we get there, we gotta warm people up to the weird conversation. So Shayne, tell the folks a little bit about yourself, your background, your history, kind of up to this point. And we'll dive in, man. We got all kinds of fun stuff to talk about.
That's good. Okay. So I actually am originally from Dallas, Texas. Grew up there all the way through my freshman year in high school. Then we moved to Colorado, which there's a fun story that goes with that we're going to get into here in just a couple minutes when we start talking about these lessons. But moved to Colorado. I graduated high school in Colorado in Ridgeway, so just around the corner from you.
Right.
And then went to Adams State. That's where you and I met. And while I was in school in Colorado, my family moved back to Dallas. So after school, I went to Dallas, worked with my dad for a little while, and then met my wife, got married, and we moved to New York. I spent 5 years in New York City. I went to an acting conservatory for the first 2 years, and then worked pretty consistently as an actor for the next 3 after that. And then my career took us to Tennessee. We spent a year there, and then Branson, Missouri for 2 years. And from Branson, we ended up in Southern California, 2 years in Burbank, in LA area, and then down in San Diego for 6. And then jumped across the country to North Carolina for a year. And then here we are in Des Moines now, a year later from that. So it's been quite a ride for the last 18 months.
Sounds like it. It's like, where in the world is Shayne Mims today, right?
That's true. But I am blessed to have a wife that has been with me that entire time. Christy and I are at 18 years now. We've got 4 amazing children. So, life is good. I can't complain.
That's wonderful. Well, I mean, it's a cliche and I won't even go there, but it's like, behind every successful man is an amazing woman, and that goes both ways. But I can attest to that I would not be half the man that I was today if it wasn't for my beautiful wife, Crystal. So she will be very mad that I even said that, but it's true. And she needs to hear it. So there you go.
Do you find that there are times that she believes in you more than you do?
Oh my gosh. Like every single day, it's like, And I need it. It's good. It's a good little, encouragement. Like I said, the massive imperfect action. God knows what he was doing, right? Putting us together for sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I do it all over again too. But yes,
absolutely.
I need that belief in myself, and she is more than enough for the both of us. And
I love that.
I'm so fortunate. So,
Yep. Wonderful. So my goodness, let's start at the beginning, shall we? Like I said, like you mentioned that we met in college. We were musicians together. We sang in it. Let's just start there, because when I think of Shayne Mims, my mind goes back to 68 West and doing in the moment they were the coolest things ever. Now looking back, my boys would cringe a little bit, but you know what? Forget them. We had a blast. We thought we were pretty cool. So tell us about your musical history a little bit, and you can weave a little bit of Adam State in there if you'd like to.
Yeah. So, music is one of those things that, listen, the shortest version of the story is when I was in elementary school, I can remember getting from the library at the school one of those Disney songbooks that only had melody lines in them. And I knew enough about the piano that I would literally pluck them out, and I was learning those Disney tunes. Now we're talking a long time ago, so it was songs that most of the people here have probably never even heard.
Yeah, right.
So I did that, and then I started kind of noodling around and teaching myself. So I would sit down with Garth Brooks was big at the time, so I was trying to learn how to play Garth Brooks songs and just teaching myself some piano. I was also, my brother had played trombone all the way through high school, and so I was like, well, then I'm playing trombone. That's what I'm doing. Partly because I didn't have to buy one. My parents were like, you're playing trombone.
That does help, right?
But I loved it. I was playing low brass, so 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And here, if I'm being honest, when I was in the late sixth grade, summer, probably between 6th and 7th grade, I had a sticky fingers problem, and actually, I got caught stealing something from the grocery store. I needed batteries, and instead of asking my parents to buy batteries, I tried to steal some. What ended up happening is my parents were like, okay, we need to give you something else to do. And my uncle, who was a musician, was a drummer, and he brought me a practice pad and 2 sticks, and he said, this is what you need to be spending your time on. And so that's what I did. I started learning to play the drums. I played it in the jazz band at school, and played percussion up through high school. When we moved to Colorado, it was a much smaller school. I would have probably graduated a class of about 1,200 in Dallas. But from my school in Colorado, I graduated in a class of 17. So between you and me, I graduated top 20 in my class. Let's be honest.
Look at you, go.
But that also gave me opportunities. I played in high school. I played some tuba. I played some French horn. I played in the percussion, and then going into college, also played both in band and in choir. Now, I had gotten exposed to the Phantom of the Opera when I was in high school. I'd always loved storytelling, but storytelling with music together, that's kind of probably what set me on this journey at the very beginning. And so I was studying some voice and theater, and ended up just getting a general music degree because I kind of had taken all the classes. It was like, this is the degree that I have. So I remember some specific things, like rehearsing with you on, we did some like little trio stuff, and we sang at some of the local churches, and we did, man, that was such a fun time in my life. And of course, we all wanted to be the Backstreet Boys. That's what we wanted to be. And we were just doing it ourselves. But that was good, man. That's where you and I got to spend a lot of time together. And They're amazing days, man. Good memories.
It's so funny. I'm not sure if you've taken your family back to Alamosa. I think literally only one time did we go back there specifically for something, college related. It was like a homecoming or whatever, and it's probably been 6 or 7 years ago because my boys were little, and we had a good time. I mean, it was like the football game, and there's the alumni this and that and whatever. But I was like, man, there's not much to do here. Like, why? I have nothing but amazing memories of my time at Adams State. And I've come to realize that, like, it must have been the people because, no offense to the San Luis Valley or whatever, there's not much else going on other than amazing people at a fun college. So that was my experience anyways.
I remember when, and maybe this was even before you got there, when they got a Wendy's, and we were all so excited that Wendy's was coming.
Yeah. Yep. Too funny. Yeah.
Good times. Good
For
times.
sure. So, I don't know if we need to linger there much anymore. You mentioned the Backstreet. I'm not sure if I had ever aspirations for Backstreet Boys, but our vocal a cappella group, 68 West. So for those that are in Colorado, 68 West is actually up in Fort Collins, the actual road, and it's also known as Harmony Road. We thought we were pretty brilliant, It was kind of an insider thing. You had to know. If you know. It's one of those things, and we had good times, man. I think we sounded pretty good. I'm not sure if we would give Backstreet Boys a run for their money. I can't dance worth a lick, so I was kind of out from the beginning. But we had a good time, anyways.
Well, let me tell you, for us music nerds, the original name of that group when we first started, there was 5 of us when we first started, and we called ourselves Dominant Five.
Oh, yes, I do remember that. Yeah.
Because we thought we were brilliant. And that's a musical term. Of course, the 5th in the scale is the dominant note. So we thought we were super creative by calling ourselves that. But that was what I watch some of those videos. I show them to my kids, like of us.
Oh, yeah.
Doing some of
you have to send those to me. I don't know if I've seen any of those. Oh, yeah. Well, there you go. There's that. My boys wouldn't even know how to turn a VHS on.
Yeah, that's funny.
Crazy. That's crazy. Funny. Were you around for the Martini Shot days? Did you ever see Andy Clementi and us in the Martini Shot rock band? Those were good times too.
I was actually the original drummer before Bruce.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
When Andy
gone
came
through a few, so that was fun.
And that's man. Those were fun. Andy, super talented guy, and I think he's like high school principal now, and doing amazing stuff. But and that band still plays.
Yep.
But yeah, I got a chance to be on the ground floor of that one. I was his original drummer.
Right. I love it. I didn't even remember that. I was going up to Colorado Springs, it was in December, and for an education conference, and I had a few minutes, and I texted Clementi. And I said, "Hey, dude, what's going on? Can I stop by your school?" I literally had no idea he was the principal. I think he was the AD. He was a choir teacher for a little while. I had just lost touch with what was going on. And he's like, "Yeah, let me come by and I'll show you our brand new school that we helped build." And so, yeah, Clementi, you need to be on this show, dude. It would be super fun to catch up and get your take on education and leadership and all this kind of stuff. So, good stuff. Fun times, man, for sure.
Yep. Yeah, and I mean, even during those times at Adams State, that was early on for me trying to become an actor, trying to become a musician.
Right.
And I mean, listen, I'll dive right into some of these lessons that we talked about.
Yeah, for sure.
One of the bigger things that I learned was while I was at Adams State, and that was the whole idea of being humble. You got to work hard, but you got to be humble. And here's why I say this, Andy, and you might remember some of this, maybe you don't. I thought I was a big fish in that small pond. I actually thought I was a really large fish in that small pond. In my head, that's what I was.
Right.
And I think to my fault, I told people that a lot, and I treated people that way. And it was, I had to get knocked down a few pegs by a few people. Dr. Shower, who I still talk to, by the way. I'm a choir director.
Really? That's awesome.
Yeah, Dr. Shower's in Arizona now, and it just reminded me, just humbling me, and just telling me, listen, you got to be humble. You're not going to get anywhere walking into a room and telling everybody how great you are. You just show up and be who you are, and work. You don't have to be the most talented in the room, but you should work harder than everybody else, and just let your work show for itself. That was a conversation I had with Dr. Shower, and that was beneficial, man. So it was a huge life lesson for me that I am working on pouring into my kids. I'm working on pouring it into my students here at Drake. Just start there. Be humble. Start there.
I love it. Absolutely. No, I completely agree with that. Um, so like I mentioned before, Shayne came uber prepared to this. I said, "Hey man, it's just a conversation." He's like, "Well, I got all these lessons to do." So like you've given us one here, and again, in no particular order. Do you have another one that you want to just drop on the listeners here of where do we want to go next?
Yeah. So, kind of, I guess, along the lines of that, and we're still in Colorado right now, which
Right.
is good because I'm talking about stuff from like high school and moving to Colorado. But along the lines of be humble and work harder than everybody else. Now, I
Mm-hmm.
had a chance to, when we moved to Colorado, I played high school basketball, and our coach, we were not the most talented team in the state, but our coach, his big thing was mastering the fundamentals. We will play the game better than anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
We will dribble, we will pass, we will play defense, we will shoot better than anybody else. Master the fundamentals.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, what that translated into was we won 73 games in a row.
Wow.
We won the state title 2 years. In fact, we only lost one game in all 3 years that I played there. And unfortunately, it was the championship game in my senior year. But to our credit, we were all injured. So they were playing somebody who wasn't up to their best. But whatever, that's another conversation for itself. But just the idea of like master the fundamentals, whatever it is that you're doing, put in your 10,000 hours worth of work and be really good at what it is that you're trying to do. And so I'm working on that with my students in terms of that. I mean, do you have questions about that specifically? Because I'd love to tell you how we got to Colorado, because that's a super fun one.
Yeah, let's pull on that for a little bit, and then we'll back up because again, I'm kind of looking in order. You said you kind of done this just starting at the beginning and moving forward for that. I resonate a little bit with this aspect of it, and specifically because it's basketball that you were mastering the fundamentals in. I've got a high school son that's a freshman that is now moved from JV up to varsity and is now playing on varsity team, and I am so proud of him. But I think this is, and I'm not going to say then and anybody else, but I mean, he is working his tail off. He's working on the fundamentals. He's doing what he needs to do to kind of work that up. So I can resonate with that, and I do see the value in that. And I think that's honestly a lot of times a piece that people forget, right? They see the LeBrons, they see the all of the Stephs and this kind of stuff, and they want to have the accolades, but they're not willing to put in the work. And nothing good in life comes from doing things halfway.
Yeah. And I've read those interviews, and I've watched him talk, LeBron and some of those guys. They're the ones that are first ones to the gym and last ones to leave.
Yep.
And they just happen to be more talented than anybody else in the world, but they also work harder than anybody else. And I learned that also. Adam State, one of my best friends in the whole world, I still talk to him on a regular basis. Gabe Greer, he's an actor in LA now, but Gabe models this as well as anybody I've ever known. He works harder than anybody that I know. And that's why he's in LA, and he's been there almost 15 years and doing a career in LA as a film actor and a teacher and all that. So it's work harder than anybody else regardless. Don't rely on your talent and think that, oh, you've got it, you don't have to work hard. And I think that goes together with the whole be humble. The lessons I learned at Adam State was I didn't think I had to work very hard because I was like, I'm the big fish here. What do I have to work for? So it all goes together.
For sure. So let's back up a little bit and get the story into this. We did things a little bit out of order, but they're all good lessons regardless of the order in which they came. So tell us a little bit more of how you got to Colorado and the lesson that you learned from that one.
Well, I think it goes with what you just put up on the screen just a few minutes ago about the whole take imperfect risk, I think is what you said. And that's being adventurous and taking risks and trying new things. That was a lesson that I learned in high school, and here's why. So I'm in Dallas. I'm growing up in Dallas. My dad is owning and operating his own business. He's an entrepreneur. He's got a couple of different businesses going. But at some point during ninth grade, my dad had decided, I think it's time to move out of the big city. And so to make their decision of where to go, they actually put two maps on the wall. My mom's from a town called Healdsburg, which is just outside of San Francisco. So they put a map of Northern California, and then they put a map of Colorado on the wall next to each other, and they picked up a dart and threw a dart.
You're kidding
This
me.
dart hit Telluride.
What?
Of all places.
Wow.
About 3 weeks later, we did spring break there. And we moved up there that summer.
Crazy. That is not an inexpensive place to live. Telluride is not. That's like an hour and a half from right here. It's beautiful, but that's where the movie stars go, right?
Yeah, it is. In fact, at one point, my parents, they'd owned a bed and breakfast over in Uray for a while, because again,
Okay.
dad being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And he had a painting crew. I love this story. This is part of kind of all the things. He had a painting crew coming in and working on that. And in the middle of the job where people were painting his bed and breakfast, the a foreman, the leader of this team, just walked off the job and left them. And so dad was talking to them and said, well, hey, what are you guys going to do after this? Like, well, we don't know, because he's gone. And dad's like, well, how about you just come work for me? And so my dad, that we'd lived there long enough, he'd had enough relationships, he knew all the builders. My dad started calling all of his construction friends and saying, hey, I got a painting crew. I'd love to give some jobs to them. Can you give them some work?
Right.
And they said, yeah, sure. And dad said, well, I mean, to be honest, I don't even know what to charge you. And they're like, don't worry, we'll help you with that. So like my dad in that point started ended up becoming a 6-figure painting business where they were going and showing up painting houses. They painted for Ralph Lauren, who has a big ranch in that area. They painted over in Telluride a lot, painted several of those houses for some of the celebrities and whatnot. So, there's my dad again, just taking risks and being adventurous, be like, well, I know nothing about painting. I can't even spell painting, but why don't you work for me?
I love it. I love it. Well, it's kind of the, I'm trying to think of a more eloquent way to say it. The non-eloquent way is no risk it, no biscuit, but that's not very cool. That's below our podcast level standards here. But if you don't take risks, you're not going to get the rewards, right?
Yeah. No,
my wife is going to be like, did you really just say no risk it, no biscuit on the podcast? Yeah, yes, I did.
No risk it, no. I need to write that.
Yeah, you don't have to steal that one. It's okay. That one can die with this.
I'm always looking for good material
I love it.
Yeah, that's good.
Oh my gosh. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. Well, let's continue the journey. What was next on your journey past college? What was a good life lesson after that?
Yeah, so a little bit of a almost a hiccup there while I was in school. So in my junior year in college, I found out that I had herniated discs in my lower back, and you probably remember this.
Yeah.
And I had surgery. And so I went home to Dallas and had surgery for my lower back, and I thought, I'm not going to go back. You don't need a degree for performing. That's what I wanted to do. You don't need a degree. I'm not going back. And I happen to have a mutual friend. You and I have a mutual friend. Marley King is her name. Marley Wynn, excuse me. She's married now, of course. And her uncle ran a production company in Los Angeles, in Orange County, and he was a voice teacher. And so she called up Uncle Josh and said, hey, can you help him? And Josh was like, sure, send him out. And I went and I lived with Josh. I moved in with Josh, and he mentored me, and he put me in shows. And so I lived in LA at, gosh, what would I have been about that time? 20, 21 years old.
Wow.
And, that just expanded more. That's where I got a little more knocked off my pegs in terms of the whole, like I moved to LA and I thought, well, I was the best at school in college. So why am I not the best here? And, those were the processes. So that began a journey for me of sort of a mental toughness thing, because I had to figure out, how do I press forward? I was finding myself realizing that I wasn't the best at what I was doing. So I needed to work harder than everybody else, but I also had to find ways to inspire myself and to do that. Now I walked into LA, and even if I was a big fish in another pond, I was the smallest little minnow in this pond. And so I had to figure out, how am I going to make my way in Los Angeles, and ended up being there for a little while. And then I thought, you know what, I should finish my degree. I got close enough. I should finich. And I ended up moving back to Colorado, because I thought the easiest was go back to Adams State. And so I did. And I took 45 credit hours that year. I had 24 in the first semester and 21 in the second.
My goodness.
And they weren't, because I'd spent all my time doing my music classes. I was in science class at 25 years old with all the freshmen, because it was Science 101 and all the stuff that I had to do. So I finished my degree and then moved to Dallas with my family at that point. And my dad was running his own business. And the business that my dad was running at that time was in network marketing, relationship marketing, multi-level marketing, some people call it. And man, if you don't have to be mentally tough to do that, it's a really intense sales type of job where you're always dealing with people and you're dealing with rejection. I'd say that's one of the jobs that trained me the most to be prepared to have an acting career, because you get rejected as an actor. It's like the two hardest things in the world to do. And so how did I, mental toughness, how did I work with my mind? How am I going to do this today? How am I going to be confident even when every person I'm talking to is telling me no and laughing at me? all those kinds of things. So,
Sure.
I mean, we can expand on that if you want to. That was a really lengthy explanation there, but mental toughness. What am I doing every day to make my mind stronger? Because
Mhm.
there are the days when you want to quit,
Right.
and how am I going to move forward on those days? Because it's easier to quit. It's people say it's the diet thing. It's easy to make good choices when to eat well, but it's
Right.
easier even to not make those good choices.
Sure.
And so,
Yep.
mental toughness. There you go.
Yeah. No, I love it. I love it. Let's go back to the you talked about, being humble and working hard and this kind of stuff. And I think that again, we've both got kids, and I think we're constantly learning, and not to give too much of a precursor of what's coming next here, but the idea of how do you balance confidence in your ability while staying humble, while still working and being mentally tough. I mean, I feel like that's a hard balance to strike, because to your point, it's very easy to get overconfident and then you start working less hard, right? Or you get super confident and then you're fooling yourself that I don't need to work hard, right? I think life is a balancing thing, right? How do you find that balance where it's like, yes, I'm going to be tough. Yes, I'm going to work hard. I'm confident in my own ability, but I also know that I'm not the biggest fish in the sea. Like seems like there's a lot that would go into kind of finding that.
Yeah. I guess I have this conversation with my acting students in particular as well, but I think the main thing is constantly asking yourself, who am I doing this for? Because we're in a society and in a world right now that says you got to take care of yourself, you got to do everything for you, and that's it. It doesn't matter who you hurt and what you have to do to get there.
Right.
And so people are willing to leave their families out of the picture a lot of the time because they're spending too many hours at work, or the sacrifices that people make is too much. I was fortunate enough to grow up in a household where my dad ran his own businesses and could make his own choices, and so Dad was around. And I learned that lesson, how important that was, because I know too many people who that's the opposite.
Sure.
That's, again, another conversation in itself. Asking yourself, who am I doing this for? And really, I'm doing it for the other person. I'm doing it for the people around me and for the world around me. I'm doing this for my family. If I'm not at my best, growing mentally, being humble, learning all the time, I'm not at my best, I'm doing a disservice to the world. My brother actually said it the best. If we are not the best version of ourselves, we're robbing other people of experiences in life, because we're not giving them the best that we can. Whether it's in a conversation over a cup of coffee or I'm teaching a class, if I'm not, I come back to my office sometimes, if I'm being honest, I come back to my office after teaching a class and I got to sit for like 10 minutes and play a game on my phone, because I got to recoup, because I give it all right there in that space. So to answer your question, sort of to circle back around, who am I doing it for? It's for the other people, and it's serving the world around me and being the best version of myself so that I can serve the people around me and inspire the people around me. And I hope my kids, and I hope my students, and I hope everybody that I come in contact with walks away from an encounter with me feeling better about themselves, because I'm just doing the best that I can with who I am.
Sure. No, that's great. I love it. So we've mentioned, and obviously the title of the podcast is Empowered Learning, right? So we figured we'd talk a little bit about education and or learning. I mentioned this in previous episodes. I am just having the time of my life in these conversations, just because learning does not have to be in a K-12 or a higher ed institution. If you're doing it right, my estimation on this is that you're going to continue learning for the rest of your life, be that in a conference or just a relationship that you have with other people. I had a life coach a couple years ago, and one of his taglines was, everybody needs a coach. Regardless of how old you are, what you're doing, everybody needs a coach. So I obviously lean into that idea of lifelong learning is an important aspect. So would love to get your thoughts on that.
And now, a brief commercial from today's sponsor.
Hey guys, Andy Bennett's owner and president of Interactive Learning. Our awesome little company has been around for close to 20 years now, and our core purpose and mission is to empower the future of education with innovative solutions through engaging technologies and leadership programs. We are blessed to work with a wide range of markets, including K-12, trades, corporate, and government. Interactive Learning is also proud to serve our nation's JROTC programs with over 3,000 units and 500,000 cadets. For our podcast listeners today, we have a special offer just for you. It's called our Class Tech Discovery Session. This is incredibly helpful for teachers, administrators, tech personnel, really anybody involved in helping students learn with technology. Here's what you get with the Class Tech Discovery Session. It starts with a short Zoom call. We'll talk about your class needs, your wants, desires, really your class wish list of ed tech. Then we'll touch on your timelines and budgets, plus any constraints that your district might be facing. Next, we'll look at new tech and new solutions, the latest and greatest out there that might be applicable to you and your district. And if you're interested, we'll even demonstrate these crazy cool, cutting-edge technologies just for you. Finally, we'll give you an idea of costs and professional development and how we and our team will support you moving forward. Again, that is Interactive Learning's Class Tech Discovery Session. Request your session now by texting Discovery to 970-739-2229 or emailing Discovery to andy@intlrn.com. Request your school's highly informative Class Tech Discovery Session today.
And now, back to the Empowered Learning Podcast.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. I mean, the LA Lakers have a coach. LeBron James doesn't run that team. He still has a coach that guides him, and somebody from the outside that's looking in. Tiger Woods still has a coach with whatever he's doing. The best actors that are out there still go see coaches. I've listened to enough interviews with Tom Cruise and some of these guys, Will Smith, whoever it is that's out there that's doing good work. Margot Robbie in particular, I've been hearing a lot about her, of course, because of her great film this past year, Barbie. She had a movement coach. She had a dialects coach. She had somebody that was helping her with, how she was speaking, all of these things, like they're still, even at the height, and one of the most successful actors that's out there right now, and one of the best ones that's doing it is still hiring somebody to help them with the next project. Again, that's being humble. We don't, and I love it. She's a great example. Margot Robbie is a great example of that. She doesn't think she knows everything. She goes to somebody else. Help me with this. Help me be better, because you can watch me and see what I need to learn and need to grow that I may not be able to see through my own lens. And it's the humbleness of being willing to go to someone to ask for help, but then to also receive what they give you. And that's the other thing. Is like, you get those people in life that you talk to and they ask you for some feedback for something and you give it to them, and then they defend every decision they'd made up to that. And it's like, just say thanks, and then go process that later. Don't tell me all the reasons why you did it. You're not going to grow from that. Like, you didn't hear the feedback that I offered you.
Right.
So I know that was a little bit of a tangent from sort of your question, but I think that's huge. Like, you never stop learning in all of that stuff. And being humble and being willing to go to somebody and say, somebody help me with this. The best actors in the world, again, still go to class. They still go to class, and you never stop learning from that standpoint. I speak about that a lot because that's my profession. I teach theater at Drake University, and I'm teaching actors and how do they go out into the world and be better. And I spend a lot of time in the profession. You're always in class as much as you possibly can, because there's always something that you can learn.
Right. No, I love that. And I think that there's so many factors, I guess, in today's society that I wouldn't say don't honor that, but definitely do not emphasize the importance of that. I think we are in a very self-centered, I know better than you, you can't tell me what to do mentality in society. And I think, just like you said, knowing that you don't know everything and being humble to receive that, hey, I could learn something from Shayne. He's here pouring his heart and his experiences into my life. I can choose to throw up my hands and say, no, I'm good, or make, to your point, make excuses of like, yeah, but, right. There's a lot of those yeah, buts out there. Receive it and grow with that. So love it. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's definitely one of those things that I'm trying to instill in my students even today. Is you're here, you're going to get your 4-year degree, and you're going to leave this place, and don't think you know everything. There's still more learning to do. Even for me, I've been in the industry now almost 20 years, and I've had 4 kids. And so I play a dad different today than I did even 10 years ago after my first kid was born, because now I have 4 kids, and like, there's just something to it. Like we're learning in life experience I can pour into what I'm doing. And that goes for all industries. That's not just mine.
Right.
So being open to that, yeah,
Right.
man, we could have a whole discussion just on that, man.
For sure. So one of the things that you and I kind of reconnected as we were talking, kind of leading up to this recording, it was I wouldn't say shock, but I was just very impressed the fact that, you know, like you said, you've had a 20-year career in acting and in musical theater and all this kind of stuff. And my older son is very much into that, loves musical theater. I don't know if I'd mentioned this, but he's in Hello Dolly. Can't wait for that. It's going to be so much fun, and that's going to be an amazing experience. But he's a junior, nice. Right? So it's like, I think that he had kind of come to this place where it's like, you know, yes, this is fun. Yes, this is my passion, but can I really do something with that? I mean, is that a possible thing? So I would imagine through your experiences that you've had to live through and work through, and like you said, kind of cart your family from one place to the next to be able to live out that dream. So tell us what you've learned in that whole process.
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. First of all, when your son's ready to talk about where he's going to go to college,
right, we need to do that for sure.
Theater,
absolutely.
Come on now. No, I sort of circle back to the idea. I've been so fortunate with my wife, you know, being such a blessing, because when we lived in New York, she worked for a financial firm, so that I didn't have to have that waiting tables job. And you know, that actors have to have. I was able to just focus on my career at that point. But even 2008 was my best year up to that point as an actor. And I worked for 10 months that year. I did a national tour. I worked on some off-Broadway. I did some film and TV stuff. I worked a little bit in that film Salt with Angelina Jolie, if you ever saw it. I was in that. And I even did an episode of a soap opera, you know, As the World Turns at that time. I worked for 10 months that year, and I only made $9,600 as an actor. So that was part of why I got back into business with my dad and started, you know, how am I going to take care of a family? Because I cannot have an acting career and support a family on $9,600 a year. And it was good that we made those decisions at that time, because, as you know, the financial crisis that happened in 2008, 2009, my wife ended up losing her job because she worked for a financial company in New York City, and most of them lost their jobs. So, you know, finding other ways to survive and sustain a career. What else do you love to do? You know, I heard a lot of people say this early on, and I didn't understand what it meant until I was actually out in the industry doing it. What else do you love to do? Because your whole world cannot be about just being an actor. You can't eat, sleep, and breathe being an actor. You got to find the things that you love to do. You got to walk away from it from time to time. You got to go on a run sometimes. You got to, you know what? I'm going to go take my wife and we're going to go hang out in Central Park for the afternoon. Like, sometimes you got to walk away from what it is, because even in my own personal life, when I do that, it clears my head, refreshes me, and then I get right back to it. And sometimes here, even at school, when I'm planning for a class, I'm going, okay, I'm stuck. I don't know what to do. I'll go take a quick walk around campus. I'll come back and I got it. As I'm walking, I got the idea. I come back down and I'm more productive for an hour. So sometimes walk away from what it is that you're doing to get refreshed, to come back and be better. I don't even know if that answers your question, but I love what I just said.
All good stuff, man. All good stuff. Tell me a little bit about just I mean, and again, outside looking in, the people call it the grind. Like, what does it look like to be a working actor for that many years? Like, it changes, right? I mean, hey, I'm at this place. I'm having. There's another conversation. I think his episode dropped in this last Wednesday. Dale Yim is in Canada. He's been a working actor for many years as well, and that world just fascinates me. I would think that just the idea of like having to persist through the no's and persevere and kind of adapt and overcome throughout all of those ups and downs would be a challenge for sure.
Well, that's listen, a lot of people, I think, in terms of being an actor, they look at like Tom Cruise, they look at Ryan Gosling, they look at Margot Robbie, they look at some of these people and they think, well, that's success as an actor. Right. You know, the reality is, and I went through that because I was like, well, that's the only way that people will know who I am, and my face is everywhere, is that we have to define what that success is for me as an individual. I'm not in a place in this season in my life where I can be like, I'm going to go to Europe for 6 months to film a movie and leave my family behind for 6 months. I'm just not in that kind of place in life. And I don't want to make those kind of choices. So I had to decide for me, like, what brought me joy and what was it that I wanted to do, and I had to do those things. And the success. Listen, I've never made millions of dollars as an actor. Most people don't. In fact, less than 90% of actors make more than $200,000 a year. The other 90%, we are in that category that you can see right there on your screen, about $9,600. $10,000 is the average for about 90% of actors as a general rule. We don't do it because we make a ton of money. That's a great benefit. We do it because we love it. And what is successful to me is to be working, to be pouring into people. I got into the industry because I remember sitting in the audience, watching shows and getting emotionally affected. And knowing that I kind of could have the power to offer that to somebody else, to make somebody laugh, to make somebody cry, to whatever, have an emotional experience. That's why I got into doing this. I mean, it was in the 6th grade. I played the magic mirror in Snow White in the Seven Dwarfs. I had no idea that I had the funny lines. I was saying my lines and people were laughing, and I was like, wow, I have an incredible amount of power and responsibility in that sense, that I can give people the chance to laugh and lighten their day and make it better. And so for me, success was somebody laughing at what I was doing, somebody coming and showing and seeing the show, and somebody after the show was, man, thank you for doing that. I really appreciate it. I'm going to go call my dad now because you just reminded me that, like, I need to reconnect with my family. Whatever that is, that to me is successful.
Right. No, I love that. That's really, really good. So you've mentioned at the beginning kind of all of the different stops, right? The little pit stops along the way of your life and your career. I guess what does that look like? What is, and you mentioned that your wife was behind you 100%. I've gone through it, a couple of career changes, and that, I mean, for marriages to last and to thrive, you need to be like this, because if you go one way and they don't see it that way, then that is a surefire way to pull a marriage apart. So, as possibilities and as things popped up, what did that sound like in the Mims household of, like, hey, are we going to do this? Are we going to that? Is this a matter of prayer? Just a gut feeling? Like, how did you make those decisions to go from California to North Carolina to New York to all of these different places?
Yeah. That one, we have not always seen eye to eye. We have struggled with that. If I'm laying the cards out on the table. And so we have had some difficult conversations about those kinds of things. We moved to LA after Branson, and we were in LA, and I was a VIP tour guide at Warner Brothers Studios, one of my favorite jobs that I've ever had. I loved it. I made $15 an hour. It was not a lot of money.
Wow.
And Christy was working from home. She had a great job. She'd been in there 5 years, and she gets laid off from this job. We had the 2 girls at this time, so there's 4 of us, and I got a $15 an hour job. So I started driving for Uber when it was really early on to do that, and you could actually make a decent amount of money doing that. So I was working 40 plus hours a week at Warner Brothers, and then I was driving 40 to 50 hours a week to try to just make the ends meet.
Wow.
We got actually to a place at that time where we couldn't pay our rent. My dad helped us 1 month. My buddy Gabe in LA helped us 1 month. It was tremendous, but we got to a place where I had to find something else to do, but we could not afford to pay rent. And Christy took the girls and went and stayed with her parents in South Dakota with them. We said, I'm going to start a new job. I was selling timeshares actually in San Diego. I started a new job. We couldn't afford it. I was sleeping on couches with friends, trying to get this job going. And it was not a separation because we didn't want to be together. It was we literally couldn't afford to have a place to live, and I was not going to put them in a car to live. So that time lasted us almost 6 months of being apart like that. And that was a tough one for me because I was trying to figure out how can I support my family and make this work. I was barely making it just to feed myself in San Diego at the time.
Right.
And she was there with her parents and with our kids. And, my girls at the time were about 1.5 years and 3.5. So they were almost 2 and 4. And I was missing key parts of their lives. And so by the time we finally came back together, which was a God story, and that's a long conversation in itself for another time. By the time we came back together in San Diego, we basically looked at each other and said, we're not making any decisions like that without each other and without doing this together. Because I'll never make that decision again. if I'm being honest, I don't know what I was thinking.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing it for them, but it was not even the right choice for that sake.
Right.
So, I won't make that choice again. She and I agreed we're never going to do that and have to live life like that ever
Yeah.
again. And so, when I went into to go into grad school, because I wanted to teach at the college level, I knew I had to get a master's degree. Our conversations before that we're stepping into a transition period, and this might mean we're going to end up having to move. Are we willing to do that? And are we ready to do that? And so I started grad school knowing when I graduated 2 years later that I was going to be applying for jobs all over the country, and we were open to that. And she said yes, as long as we do it together.
Right.
So that's a choice that we have continued to make, and we've bounced all over the country, and God has given us great opportunities to do that. We went from San Diego to North Carolina to work for a job that 5 months later closed. We'd moved our family across the country. Both of us got laid off from that job that we were doing, working for that organization. And we thought we just moved across the country with our family. Now we have 4 kids. What do we do? And that's the beautiful thing about being where I'm at right now. When I was in grad school, I tie this little tiny piece of story because I love it. I think it's amazing. My grad program was to teach educators. We learned how to be educators and how to be in the classroom. It was not a performance degree. It was an education degree.
Gotcha.
And we had to choose a job somewhere in the country to mock apply to. We were going to write a fake cover letter. We were going to do fake interviews, all the things to get ready for a job. 2018, in the fall of 2018, I picked a job somewhere in the country that I thought matched. Andy, I'm sitting in that office.
Whoa.
5 years later, that job came available again, and I'm sitting in that office, the same office I would have been in if I would have actually been applying for that job 5 years ago. Sorry, that catches me off guard just to think of how amazing it was. But my wife being willing to say, let's do it and let's see what happens. But we're doing it together. And that's the answer to the question, is that we said we're doing it. We'll be willing to do it. We don't know what the answers are going to be as we make these big moves all over the place. But as long as we're together, that's all that matters. Oh, wow. Okay.
That's amazing, buddy. Isn't it amazing how God works through those times where we can't see the end? I mean, through the forest, through the trees, right? I mean, in that moment, I can't imagine how difficult that was, not having your family around, and I can relate as a dad, right? I mean, I think, and this is no offense or does not belittle the amazing impact and the role that moms have in a family, but it hits different, right? For dads. I mean, there's this sense of it is my job to provide for them. It's my job to keep us together, to, put food on the table and do all these things. And when I can't do that, it's a hole in your heart. So to live through that, and I sounds like that you and Christy have come out the other side better for it. It's not fun to go through the dark times, but God has worked through those difficult times and gotten you in a better spot. And the fact that you're sitting in the office where we're projecting out hey, that would be an amazing thing. So God is good, man. I'm so happy to hear that you've persevered through that and are in a better spot for it.
I'd love to maybe have another long conversation about that, in the sense of just, it's amazing because I still am in awe every time God does something like that and makes a door open for us and makes it work. He's done it so many times in our life. Our life verse is Ephesians 3:20. God can do immeasurably more than we can ask or imagine.
Right.
And he's done that too many times in our lives. And I don't ever want to lose the awe in this experience.
Right.
When God does it, because I just don't ever want to lose that. And it's amazing. And we could talk about that all day. I mean, they talk about the nice piece of pottery that's on your shelf didn't get that way without going through the fire a couple of times. And so, we can all point to those times, and you're miserable when you're going through them, but you come out the other side for it. And that's, again, kind of putting a button on everything we've been talking about. Who am I doing it for? Because if I was only doing it for me, I probably wouldn't have a family at this point. My wife would be off with kids, or I might not even have any kids because we would have gone our separate ways before we even had kids.
Yeah.
Who am I doing it for?
Right.
It's to put that out into the world. And so I think I can't stress that enough.
Right. Right. That's so good, man. So good. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's, man, tugs at the heartstring. I was watching a Facebook reel that kind of came up like from a year prior, and it was talking a little bit about, some things that I had gone through in 2022 and coming into 23, where it's beginning of, I guess it's February now, but just dealing with loss and dealing with hurt and learning, and how do we, overcome and move forward with that. It's a never ending process, and life is going to throw you curveballs, and it's not always going to be the way that you thought it would be. But if you can, fail forward, I guess is the best way to say it, right? I mean, if you're going to make mistakes, at least learn from it and try to overcome and not make the same mistake again. And, being around people that you love and trust, and that have your back, like our wives do. I mean, there's nothing that we can't do if God's on our side, and we've got a good support system.
You know what? I mean, I'll just say this is another one of the ones off of the list that I think is so key, is just being a good human through this. I mean, that's kind of like a weird expression, but it goes with who am I doing this for? It's for the other people around. Being a good human. When I book an acting job, my goal is show up and be, do what I'm supposed to do. Be somebody they can rely on, they can count on, they know I'm going to show up. But also, I want to be somebody that they would want to hire again. And so that means being nice to people. That means being kind to people. That means encouraging other people. That means not going into life and doing it for me. Right. I don't care if I step on everybody else. Some other theater will hire me, or some other film production will hire me. Right. And learn in the industry really quickly how small it is from that standpoint. But it's just, I go into it going, how can I serve the people around me the best I know how?
Right.
And be a good human, because everybody's out for themselves, and nobody's going to win. Nobody's going to win. That's a big problem in the world right now. Right. Is everybody's out for themselves, and they're not thinking of other people.
That's a good one. I'm gonna get that one down. No one wins when you're out for yourself. When you're only out for yourself.
Yeah. I think Zig Ziglar is probably one of those people that said it. You help enough other people get what they want in life, and you'll get what you want.
Love it. I love it. I'll have to put that one in the show notes there, because I'm not sure I can get that one down perfectly. I love it.
That's a big one, but yeah,
it is a big one. It is a big one. Shayne, buddy, this has been so much fun. I've been looking forward to this time that we got to reconnect and talk. I had a preview of kind of some of the things we were talking about, but thank you so much for just being authentic and real. It doesn't surprise me, but I mean, we've all grown, we've all changed a little bit. I think we're all in a better spot. We're better people than we were in college, and it warms my heart to see what God's done in your life, and the amazing future that you have set for yourself, and the family that you have. And I'm happy for you, buddy. I really am.
I appreciate that, man. And again, I'm just honored that you even asked me to be a part of this, and I'm just happy to talk about it. And I hope somebody walks away from this going, man, okay, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go think of the other person in my choice that I make tomorrow. I like that's what I've tried to instill into my students and my kids and everybody.
Right. And another thing that I've learned through the years of being an educator, and it's interesting because my education path has gone from teaching littles to, helping out coaching at the middle school, helping out with the band at the high school. And then now, honestly, my education career path has been teaching teachers longer than it was teaching kids, which is still kind of a crazy thing in my mind. But that idea that, you're always giving back, you're always, moving forward, pouring out. Just because I'm not physically in a classroom does not mean that the message that you and I have cannot impact people's lives. It's just in a different way.
Yeah, it's so true. So true. It's been sort of a life mantra for me, if you want to call it that. I've always wanted to make an impact on somebody else. And as an actor, I get to do that, like emotionally, and tell them a story. As a teacher, I get to pour into people's lives. And like we talked about at the very beginning, emptying my cup. I get to empty my cup into other people and fill up other people. And it just, nothing brings me more joy than to get to do that.
Right. I love it. Well, I pray for continued success in that role for you. Well, we've come to the end here. Well, this must be the first of many, because I'm sure we have more we could talk about. But for right now, just to get people back on their day, let's ask the 3 key questions that we ask of all of our Empowered Learning podcast guests. So number 1, Mr. Mims, who is the leader that you most admire and try to emulate?
Well, that is a question I could talk about for a really long time. But I try to emulate Mr. Mims. And actually, when I say that, I'm talking about my father.
Okay, gotcha. Just to clarify.
Dad. Yeah, Dad, Phil Mims. Dad is one of those people. That's where a lot of what we've been talking about today, I've learned these lessons through conversations with my dad, serving others, being there for other people. My dad works harder than anyone else that I know. He's owned and operated his own businesses. And to do that, you have to work hard. You have to get up before everybody else and stay up later than anybody else does and make those choices. But also, what my dad has done an incredible job of during that time was being present for us and my family and as kids and being at home. So he did not sacrifice us for the success that he had created for himself. And so if I could emulate that and be like that, be the best version of myself and work harder than anybody else, but also take my family along for the journey. And that's what he did. And that's what I want to do.
Right. I love it. I don't know if I alluded to it, but this is present in my mind because, I did. Yeah. The little Facebook reel that popped back up again. I feel like this is a God thing. So here we go. We're just going to jump right into this. I had posted a year ago about this idea of people say out of a good heart and out of wanting to not sound braggadocious that I want to be half the man. I want to be half the man as my dad or as my hero, whatever it is. You're a father. I'm a dad. Do we not want more for our kids than we had for ourselves? Do we want our kids to be half the person we were, or do we want them to be 5, 10, 100 times better than what we were? That is not and again, for the people that know my dad, he passed away a few years ago. You know what kind of an amazing man he was. I strive to be that type of man, but if I feel very strongly that if I set my goals or set my sights on being half the man that Paul Bennett was, he would be disappointed. I think he wants more for me than that. So for what it's worth, my friend, I'm sure your dad wants more for you than just being half the man. So keep on that path, and don't be afraid to surpass your dad, because I'm sure he would be happy about that.
No, that's good. My dad, I'll say I'm very proud that Phil Mims is my dad. I'm very proud of that. And I wake up every day going, I want my children to be proud that I'm their father. Right. So I have to be the best version of myself so that they have something to be proud of, which is what all of this we've been talking about this whole time. Right. So my dad was the best example of that I could see. I've worked alongside of a lot of great leaders and those sort of things, but that's, if I could, if I could even be 10% of what my dad is to the world around him, I've succeeded. And I think I do better than that. But I'm with you. I agree. We're on the same page.
Awesome. Very good. All right. The one that you've been looking forward to, we kind of talked about this a little bit ahead of time of this one might be the one that was a little bit more difficult. So hopefully we're warmed up. Your brain is firing on all cylinders. So Mr. Mims, if you could pick 1 or 2 or 3, doesn't have to be just one, but what learning has most impacted you in the last year?
Oh, that's good. I'll be honest. I've spent some time as a pastor. I've been on a pastoral staff.
Okay. And
so I've always looked to certain pastors, listened to their sermons, listened to their teachings, read their books. Mm-hmm. One person in particular, and this was even before I was a pastor, just in life as a general rule, is a pastor out of Los Angeles. His name is Erwin McManus. And his big perspective is probably why he's right to be in Los Angeles, is that our God is a creative God. He created us, and he created us to be creative. So why do we try to bury that in ourselves? No, this is how he created us to be. So go be who we're created to be. Don't try to go and be something else, be somebody else, be who I am created to be. And that's how the world around us becomes better, because we are the best version of ourselves. And so Erwin McManus, man, that's a guy that has, it's like he speaks right into my soul. It's like, what are you doing like in my head? Get out of my head, because the things that I listen to every single time like rocks me to the core. So yeah, Erwin McManus, ERWINE.
Thank you. I was going to even ask. I'm always doing those things like the little spelling question mark, right? Yeah, got it.
Yeah.
Love it.
No, it's been I was actually I met Erwin because our church in New York City had him as a guest speaker, and I had a chance to talk to him back then in 2008. And so yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. I love it. All right. Last question, my friend. How would you empower learning for future generations? We've talked about a lot of different angles and the different facets that might cover, but what would be your just immediate gut response to that question?
I have had, so this is the first week of our classes. I have had 2 sessions with my acting classes, which means I've been with them for 2 hours and 30 minutes. This is as much as I've been. We've done acting exercises for about 30 of those minutes. The other time that we have spent together have been talking about what are the habits that make you successful from a day-to-day basis. How are you going to be better today than you were yesterday?
Right.
The expression I use with them is, people say the grass is always greener on the other side. I challenge my students, say, no, the grass is greener where you water it. I'm not trying to have Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling's career. I'm trying to water my own grass. So what are the habits I'm doing on a day-to-day basis? And this is the thing that people are not getting taught. I've got students who spend more time trying to figure out how can I do just enough to get by and beat the system and still get a decent grade than just doing the work and like becoming a better person. And so like that's sort of the generation that we're dealing with. So moving forward, these kids and students need to be taught how to just make better choices from day to day, how to have better habits in what they're doing, how to serve others and be a better human to the people around them. So incorporating that into just, I'm going to give you knowledge. Yeah, you're going to be a better actor because we're going to spend time together and I'm going to give you tools and tricks to do that. But you're also going to be a better human when you leave my presence. And so if we want to empower better learning and for our future generations, let's teach people how to be good humans, how to love on the people around them and how to serve the people around them and how to make good choices and good habits on a day-to-day basis. And then let's add the knowledge into being better at their craft in that sense. So I'm excited about that question. I knew you we're going to ask it because you've been asking it to everybody else and I've been swirling on it, but yeah.
Good stuff, man. I love it. Well, I have no doubt that your students are blessed and just, they're lucky to be in that place right now, learning from you that not only has the technical and the life experience knowledge, but also the perspective, right? That this is, yes, you're here for acting. Yes, we're going to learn about that kind of stuff, but it's so much more than that. And if you can leave that class or that university being a better human, being able to treat people the way that you want to be treated, and that's going to serve you in life, regardless of whether, your acting career takes off or not. So that's awesome, man. I'm happy for you. I'm happy for them. It's good stuff.
That's very nice of you to say. I really, really appreciate that. And I, just echo what I had said early on, man. I'm very inspired by what you're doing, your willingness to do this, step into a world you don't know a whole lot about in terms of podcasting, all of that kind of stuff. And you're doing it, man. And it makes me go, okay, what is it that I've been thinking about doing that I need to do? And so thank you for that, what you're putting out into the world. I'm receiving it. And I'm glad to be in this conversation with you. How about that?
Love it. Well, let's continue the conversation then, shall we?
Yeah, for sure, man. For sure. But it's my pleasure to be here. So thanks so much, man.
Awesome. Thanks again, Shayne. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon, buddy.
Absolutely, man. It's good to see you.
See ya.